What's good with y'all boys, man? Welcome back to another Ray and Kyle Everything Sports podcast. Today we've got our college football playoff predictions, man. We're coming off a big week, the biggest week so far, with a lot of good games, a lot of upsets, a lot of just real tough games. So who do we have for our one spot, Ray?
So starting off in the one, it makes it really tough to predict the college football playoff because all of the good teams are from different conferences except for the Pac-12. They're loaded over there. But in my slot, I'm starting out with Ohio State. They're going to have wins against Penn State and Michigan, I believe. I think they'll beat both of those teams, and they'll be undefeated going into the playoffs, and they'll be the clear-cut number one. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, like Ray just said, they by far have the biggest win in college football right now, coming off a win in South Bend, knocking off number 9 Notre Dame. So, like Ray said, and they still have to play Michigan and Penn State. I do think that they'll win again. So, I think they'll be the unquestioned number 1 team going to the college football playoff.
So in my number 2, I have Florida State. Kyle, what number do you have them?
I've got them out at 3, so
In the 3. So they're going to have quality wins against Duke, Miami, Florida, and they already beat that LSU team. That I think is going to be their best win. And I believe they're also going to go undefeated. They've had a little struggle recently with Boston College and Clemson, but they played that LSU team that I think is the best team they have on their schedule, and they've already beat them convincingly. So I think they'll have no problem with Florida, Duke, and Miami. So I think they'll be undefeated going in, and with them already being as high as they are, and other teams continuing to have tougher schedules than them, I don't believe there's any way that an undefeated Florida State team won't make the playoffs.
Yeah, and for my number 2, I have Georgia, but I have my 3 being FSU, which I see that, and the reason why I would put them in my 3, and that's why I predict them, is because I just Travis Hunter. They by far have the better quarterback than Georgia, but I think they have got major holes in their defense. I mean, Clemson should have won that game. They had a 30-yard field goal that was missed. They had a fumble 6 that completely changed the game around. So I think there's major holes right there, and I think Georgia. I think they will walk to the playoffs undefeated, same way FSU probably will too. But I just like their defense a lot, and I really do think Carson Beck will start to turn it up a notch.
See, and I disagree. I think that Georgia is not the best team in the SEC. I honestly don't know that they're 1 or 2 because Alabama looked better last week. But I believe that LSU is going to come out of the West and play Georgia. And then once LSU beats Georgia, they'll be only have 1 loss to that Florida State team that already have in. And then they'll also have quality wins against Florida, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri, and then they'll play Georgia in the SEC championship game. And I believe that as long as no team, Georgia or LSU, loses another game in the regular season, I believe that the winner will make the college football playoffs. But with all the teams that are being around, I don't believe that if Georgia loses a game here forward against an SEC opponent or anybody, I don't believe they'll make it even if they win the conference championship just because there's so much talent in other conferences. And then
I agree with that too. I agree with that too. I don't think there's any way that unless a lot of teams just lose games, there's no way that a 1-loss team gets in this playoffs.
Except for LSU. I think LSU can be the exception. Because LSU's loss was week 1, and it was against Florida State, who I believe is going to win out.
That is true, and like you say, you have them beating Georgia. I don't. So
yeah, and I had them beating Georgia, so I think that would make up for the loss. Plus, they have all those other. They have probably the most quality wins of a team that I have winning these games because they have Florida, Bama, Ole Miss, Missouri, who I think everybody's starting to get more and more high on, and then Georgia. So that's just a lot. That's too many quality. Plus, you have all the teams and that I didn't name that, and none of them are scrubs. I mean, you have Auburn, who has a good defense. You have Texas A&M. You have Arkansas. I mean, there's a lot of really Mississippi State. You have a lot of really good or really decent SEC teams that I believe they're going to be able to put, pretty good beatings on.
Yeah, I mean, if somehow, some way they do that, and they'll for sure get in. There's no way that with that resume knocking off Alabama, Georgia, all those teams, there's no way you can't put them in. So yeah, I agree with that.
And then I think in my 3, and I think your 4, correct me if I'm wrong, we have Texas. I believe this Texas team is really good. They don't play a whole lot of people. They've already played Alabama and already beat them. And then they play Kansas this week, and then they play Oklahoma in a few weeks. That's their only really tough task. But they're going to be undefeated. And, they've already beat Bama. We know that the College Football Playoff loves Bama. The College Football Playoff Committee loves Bama. So that's going to be a huge win in their eyes. They're going to be undefeated. They have Quinn Ewers at quarterback. There's no way that an undefeated Texas team beating Oklahoma, Kansas, and Alabama doesn't get in. And on the flip side of that, that Texas and Oklahoma game is going to be a really good game. That Oklahoma team is really good, and if that Oklahoma team beats Texas, then would have them taking that spot because then that Oklahoma team is going to be undefeated with the same resume. A little bit less. I don't know that Oklahoma does Oklahoma play any of the Pac-12 teams?
If they do, that's probably a loss for them. The Pac-12 is loaded.
No, they don't. They don't play a whole lot of competition. I mean, they have that Kansas team and Texas, but still, they would still be undefeated, and they would beat that Texas team, which that Texas team already beat Alabama. So, in turn, you would think that the college football playoff committee would see it kind of in the same way.
Yeah, and I've got Texas at 4, so I mean, not too far behind Ray. I really like Quinn Ewers. I really like Xavier Worthy, the transfer from Georgia. Mitchell, he's a deep threat, as you saw against Georgia. So, I mean, if we took two Pac-12 12 teams out of that conference and thrown anywhere else, those teams would probably make it. I mean, that's how stacked that league is. That's why it's hard for us to put any Pac-12 teams in there. Because, like we said, I mean, earlier, I mean, we feel like those are just trade losses because that's how stacked that league is.
Yeah, I have a couple notable teams that aren't going to make it. I have Michigan, who I believe is barely not going to make it. The only reason they won is to have them losing to Ohio State. And then just having that one loss towards the end of the season is going to be really detrimental to them. But if that Michigan team does pull it out and beat Ohio State, they'll go in over them. Then I have Georgia not making it just because of the loss to LSU. I think they'll win out all the way into the conference championship game, and I think LSU will beat them. USC, to me, they have the toughest schedule in college football. I mean, their schedule is just really, really hard. They have to play Notre Dame, Utah, Washington, Oregon, and then all the other games aren't give-me games either. They have Cal, who's a decent team, and they have UCLA, who's a really good team. So there's a lot of teams that USC team does play. And if that USC team does end up coming out undefeated, they're going to be the clear-cut number one. They're going to be minus 500 odds to win the championship. They're going to win it. I mean, they're going to really show us that USC team is one of the best college football teams we've ever seen. But to me, I think they're a really good team. I think they'll be in the New Year's Six, but they play too many quality teams to go undefeated. They're going to have an off game. They might have 2 off games, and that defense I just don't believe can hold up against that quality competition over in the Pac-12. And then I have Notre Dame missing. Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
So just finish that thought because I've got like some crazy scenario. Good. Yeah, go finish what you were saying.
I also have Notre Dame missing, just because I think Notre Dame is going to win out from here on out. But I believe that their resume as a one loss versus Ohio State compared to LSU's, who I have in my 4, who I think is going to come down between them two in the 4. Then LSU being also a one loss. LSU's loss came in week 1 against the team that made it in. Notre Dame's loss came in week 4 against the team that made it in. But then I think those kind of even out to me. But then you have to look at the resume. Notre Dame really doesn't play as much competition anymore as LSU's going to have to with that SEC slate, and then playing Florida, Bama, Ole Miss, Georgia. I think that's really the main one to me is with Notre Dame being independent, they don't play a conference championship, but LSU has to play Georgia in the national and the conference championship. So I think that'll be like the last thing that'll really push them over the edge over Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean the college football playoffs going to come down to the very last week. I was looking at too. Penn State plays Ohio State and Michigan, so there's a way that they can get in. Mm-hmm. But my thing is, what if Penn State beats Ohio State, right? Then Ohio State then loses to Michigan, and then what I'm saying is, what if somehow all these teams come out with one loss? So say Penn State beats Ohio State, and then they lose to Michigan, and then Michigan loses to Ohio State. You know what I'm saying? Would then a Pac-12 team be able to sneak in, maybe?
Well, then you still have you still have to have a championship in that conference, so you'd get a winner there.
That is true.
But I mean, if any Pac-12 team comes undefeated, bump everybody down. They're the one. Bump everybody down.
Yeah, I mean, if somehow a Pac-12 team's not, it's. I don't think there's any way that happens.
I feel like as long as Ohio State, Michigan, or Penn State undefeated through the regular season and win their conference championship, I don't believe there's any way that you can put a Pac-12 team that's going to have such a hard slate over them.